Yesterday I talked about my YAML parser, and getting to the point where I could write anything like that was quite a journey. And so through that journey, I explored, encountering APL or Dyalog APLs, good points, bad points, and a few ugly points. And today I just want to basically share an opinion piece it's just my experience with everyone, what it was like, and some of my ideas from the perspective that I have as a developer on what APL or what Dyalog looks like. So I have lots of, I've been a Linux nerd for most of my life. Even before ever using Linux, I was kind of a Linux fanboy. And that implies that I spent a lot of time just learning things on my own, right? It was just kind of getting out the computer, typing things out, figuring out what's going on, and the culture of do-it-yourself Linux nerds, right? Autodidactism, right? And this puts me sort of in the space of what Morton calls a functionista, right? So I'm, learning things on my own, studying on my own, and that's how I came to APL. It's this shiny thing, and it has fancy claims, so I wanted to learn this on my own. Kinda. I also have another hat that I wear, which is sysops, infrastructure, SRE, doing very businessy things, trying to put out fires for customers and solve customer problems. So it's like very just industry hat that I put on. And these are the two, the autodidact hat and this industry hat are the two that I've mainly worn, or the perspectives I carry as I've learned APL. So the goal of this talk that I have is basically just to add this kind of perspective of what it's like to be an autodidact, coming to APL and getting to a point where I feel like I'm beyond the beginner level, and how to get beyond that, and what it might look like for other people. So yeah, I just want to make sure it's very clear that I'm calling things good, bad, and ugly, but this is all personal experience, it's all opinion, and we just want to take it as sort of a single one person slice of life. So the reason, I'm biased, right? The thing that I want is more APL in my life. And if at my job, if I'm hacking on Jenkins systems on the background, I'm doing Java, dealing with big complicated systems, and I want to eat into that space with more APL. But there's roadblocks to that with just coworkers and other things. And so that's my bias. I want that. That's what I'm going for. So the good of APL is, I think, fairly obvious. Dyalog is doing a very good job. We have the free download. I heard that's somewhat recent. So great, that's great. We have helpdyalog.com. Tons of resources on there. All the docs as well, the PDFs are great. It's just a lot of resources there. We have APL Orchard, so we can interact with other people. We have 24/7 Ask Adam, which is actually very amazing. We have support at Dyalog.com, which I have found extremely friendly, and quick response times. So all of these are tools. We have APL News, which sort of between the APL Orchard and APL News, it sort of shows we get an intersection of it to a broader world outside of just Dyalog, but other people are using this, and kind of someone new coming to APL sees that it's something that's happening. So the entrance into APL is, I think, fairly good. It's how it felt to me, like getting to learn the primitives, getting to noodle around, play with some problems. Whoops. Noodle with some problems. All of that, we can ask Adam for help on optimizing certain our tacit functions, things like this. These are great. We have APL cart too, which is awesome. And but these are sort of limited in scope. And that's where I feel the bad comes in, right? So coming to APL as a beginner and wanting to move beyond solving toy problems is kind of hard. So one of the things that I found challenging personally was that going into the Dyalog documentation, it feels like it's written from people who have been using Dyalog and APL for a long time, and there's sort of this own culture about, so if you know what to search for, it's there. But if you don't know what to search for, like, how do I write these files or something, you can search around and probably get to it, but thinking in terms of, oh, this is probably a quad, or there's probably system functions, or where I need to look. Some of these were not obvious to me, at least. And I had to search around. Yeah, I just had eventually kind of gave up on searching and just read the documentation from the top to the bottom. Not in the expectation that I would memorize it all, but just so that there would be the ideas would kind of be cached, so I'd know that things, oh yeah, this thing kind of exists, and then later I could search for it better. But that is not a great experience. Or it's a huge wall to people coming in, I think. And then another issue that I've had with the documentation is having to go back to the prose of the definitions of the primitives. It feels like, I mean, I started out in J, and the old J documentation kind of defines primitives with other primitives, which is kind of circular in a way, but it does give fairly precise, it feels like an equational semantics to what each primitive means, and it's easy to reason about the edge cases and things like this. Whereas our current documentation is all prose, and so I found myself asking lots of questions that were not in the documentation because of how things behave. I mean, for example, one that comes to mind is how key behaves. I don't think it's actually explicitly stated right now that what the left and the right argument to the function operator are. It says that it takes both, but if I'm remembering correctly, it doesn't say it precisely. So things like that. I think it would be really nice to have just a terse explanation that you could just go to and see what the primitives mean. Another thing that comes from my background is everyone does a source-first kind of workflow. It's not common to have to work in the REPL in the session and have all of your code and all of your applications sitting there. Everyone wants to have text sources, put them in Git, put them in some version control, and then you can run that in the session or whatever. And that feels kind of like a second-class citizen to me. I'm sure many of you are aware of the pains that have gone along, and I'm also aware. Talking to Alexander yesterday, that coming from not a REPL, Workspace-first workflow, and then just reflecting those changes out to the file system, I'm aware that works great. But if you're coming source code first, it feels a little weird, right? Then this is the big point for me, and this is why I came to APL in the first place. So let's see if I have this. Yeah, so seeing things like Scholl's videos and Aaron's videos and just all the Dyalog videos were intriguing, and then going from there to reading some of Iverson's papers and seeing these really big, fancy concepts being thrown around that are appealing. They sound great. And I'm like, yes, I want these. I want to know what these are. I want to learn how to apply them. I see these as being real pain points in my day-to-day job when trying to cognate about these large, complicated systems and with other employees and how to fix things. But like, how do we do this? And if APL is offering these things, how do we get them? But as a beginner, you learn the primitives, you learn how to solve toy problems, and in limited cases, these apply, right? Like coming up with really nice, clean, beautiful solutions to a problem, great, it's a nice one-liner. But what even is subordination of detail across a large system? Those were questions that were just blank to me at first, but the promises were really enticing. And so that was just a huge gap. So it's sort of like these intermediate level resources for how to go from beginning to applying these concepts, applying your knowledge of how to optimize like a little expression to how to optimize what your architecture is. Like on my YAML parser, right? I want to, think about what YAML is, not think about what the primitives do over arrays. So yeah, right. So yeah, first the sort of start out noodling, start out with programming challenges, and then we have 3. It's just something happens in here, and then you get to becoming a master of APL. Is how it kind of feels. It feels like there's a gap at 3. And coming here and talking to many of you have shared your experience with me, and just hearing old hat stories and things. It seems like the main way to bridge 3 here is just through the apprenticeship model. People are pulled into companies and have close interactions with their coworkers, get pulled on, do pair programming, and bridge that by just hands-on experience with people who know what they're doing and have already absorbed all of these Iverson promised lessons. So the model that I have in my head here is going from apprentice to a journeyman to a master. And the journeyman step is what I want to focus on. So I started out going from the beginning, trying to bridge that gap. I just want to like my story here is that I first came to APL because of Shoals and Shoes videos, and then learned the primitives and get all frustrated about how stencil works, and then bother Adam an infinite number of times, do APL quest problems, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then that's where I hit the wall. And it's, what do I do now? Like personally, everything I just said in the abstract, that's exactly what I hit. And it was literally, it was just a blank chasm of, what do I do now? I mean, I can come up with a problem. I have things in, ideas of things I could implement, and I could do it in a traditional way. Like the APL gives us the tools to write functions and all the tools to do things in a normal way, but trying to do APL in the way that I knew how to program previously just didn't deliver on the promises of subordination of detail and all these Iverson promises. Or maybe it didn't, I just wasn't able to see it, but like it was not something that I was able to leverage. I don't feel like I was able to leverage the strengths that APL can claim. So the question I had at the beginning was, is APL, I started to wonder, is APL just a bunch of C# with squiggles for, local optimizations? And so I pounced on Sue, I pounced on Aaron. So I went to, I found him at a conference, and since I was like, the only thing that I knew how to do at that point, once I hit this wall, is to jump into the apprentice kind of mode. I'm saying, I need to find somebody who can just give me their knowledge. And Aaron was there, he was visible, right? And so I pounced on him. And so once, I met him at a conference, I went to a conference specifically to meet him, and we got to talking, and I asked him, hey, I want to do this. I want you to teach me how to do good APL. And he agreed, and the first thing we had was just, let's pick a non-toy problem, and that's where the YAML parser came out of, right? We want to use that as our medium for learning. And immediately, from the start, I was not able to write any code, right? So we were able to go through YAML and go through the definitions and the specs and get a handle on the problem space, and get a handle on sort of the holistics of certain things that we wanted to do. But I would literally just sit at the keyboard and not be able to produce any code. I mean, I could sit down and write some code, but it wouldn't be what I was wanting to write. And I sat there. It was this grinding in that space literally took months, right? I mean, I would write some code and it would feel wrong. And Aaron would tell me why it wasn't doing what I was telling him I wanted to do. And then I would delete everything, rewrite it again, and it would be the same thing. It was a cycle of just writing code that I just was very unhappy with. And But going through that, I was started out, I think, so the beginning level is like thinking in terms of arrays, but doing directly in terms of arrays. All the primitives are operating on arrays, and it's all about arrays. But dealing in a problem space, you're not thinking about arrays, or the concepts are not about arrays. YAML is not about arrays. It's about YAML pieces. It's about these other concepts. And how to bridge or how to map the array concepts onto the problem domain was, in retrospect, the main lesson, the main tool, cognitive tool that was just completely missing. And I don't know of any resources that are out there to sort of get a handle on that problem. And so yeah, this is what I experienced. So reflecting back, like how can we get to a point of, or like what kind of materials can be offered to an autodidact trying to bridge this intermediate sort of space? So first, I mean, doing this apprenticeship model, there's an incremental learning process, right? I think that's kind of obvious. You can't just jump to the end all at once. So there needs to be some kind of model of how to proceed through that intermediate space. And I don't have any like proposals for what that model needs to look like. I can share my own experience at a later time. That would be a longer story, I think. But right now, where there's nothing, I think there needs to be some sort of kind of checkpoints. And then this is another one that's pretty interesting. This mapping arrays to the problem domain, I think it's important to stop talking about arrays and talk about the top level concepts, right? And then show in code, in APL, what that concept looks like, with APL notation. Or I keep saying should, but these are the insights that I had through the process of coming to write this YAML parser. At this point, expressions have semantic meaning within the problem domain. But at the beginning, just thinking in APL just caused a block to think about anything beyond the symbols, right? Think about the problem. And I also think hand-holding is really important. Giving the high-level concepts gives a direction, but for me, it was absolutely not like to get beyond the point of just sitting at the computer and not writing anything. It really helped to have examples of this sort of master-level code. If you don't know chess very well and you see a chess master's sort of game, it's probably not super helpful. So there needs to be sort of a gradation between beginner and master, probably along this journey, but a degree of handholding showing this is what it looks like, this is what APL means, and you can have the same expression. I think it would be really cool to have like the same expression or really similar expressions and then applied to different domains and show what that expression means whenever you write it and you're applying it to different problems. To show that we don't have to think in terms of arrays always. You're thinking at the high level, right? And the thing about my journey was it's this apprenticeship model all over again, right? I go to Aaron, we do it. So it's in the model of getting into a company where there's strong APLers and then absorbing their knowledge. But I want to return to kind of autodidactism. I mean, that's the world where I come from, and that's kind of my people, right? And I think I can speak to them. So yeah, how do we bridge that gap? So I think I have, there are a few ideas that I have that can be sketched out that speak to people in that world, like with my coworkers. Fleshing out my YAML parser because it's YAML and it speaks to them. Paul Mansour's dev blogs, I think, are getting there, or in that kind of space, because he has specific problems that he's trying to solve, and he shows how he's using APL to solve them. And then the standard bash utils like ls and copy and things like this. if you had sort of an APL implementation of those as a shiny, showy thing, that's something that would speak to people. And I think going through how, hey, look, we can do really fast CAT, or we can do really fast LS or something in APL. That's something that communicates to, nerdy devs in DevOps or something. So yeah, speak to the autodidacts. So I think it's also, I'm biased, but I think that the sort of Silicon Valley zeitgeist and the people that are deep in the infrastructure of Linux and things kind of do set trends in industry in a way. We'll pick up on ideas. People who picked up, typed programming and all of this started out as like really nerdy things within these groups, making minor changes and say, hey guys, look, these are really great. And then it sort of percolated out to the rest of the community. Just like top front end devs and back end devs and stuff the current trends kind of started out a long time ago amongst infrastructure guys and these functionistas, I think. And so, yeah, I think I say I'm biased, but I think it's worth targeting that kind of market, those kind of people, my kind of people, right? And then this is not super big. This is transitioning, but there's a few ugly points coming from this perspective that I found interacting with Dyalog. So I've talked with a few of you already about this, but packaging on Linux, we have deb and RPM downloads, but as a Linux user, you expect to just be able to go to your package manager and install a package, right? And it feels like it feels weird. It feels kind of like you're doing old Windows, you're on Windows or something, you're downloading a file and installing it. So it's just, yeah, that's just a little bit ugly from this perspective. I talked about some Docker bugs that we had, and this is something that is immediately obvious to like people in my world. That's where we first go. We go to the TTY, we go to Docker and look at the TTY session or something. So this isn't a big deal. I think this is fixed apparently already, but the fact that it was missed just it says something to me. There are some TTI quirks. So everyone, I think many of you know that I stick to the TTY. It's a little quirky in certain ways and feels different than how every other repo works. And so it would be nice to have Dyalog feel more like other tooling, so that we can leverage workflows that we're used to. And then, yeah, just sysops engineering tools. So one of the ugly points is, for me, I'm trying to think about how am I going to introduce Dyalog to my coworkers, right? And so all of my coworkers are really focused on open source and free tooling. And this in the industry, people are using in production open source tools all over the place. So if I say, hey guys, let's use this licensed tool, and because it's really cool, there's just immediate barrier there. And I'm not sure. I'm not proposing that we make Dyalog open source or anything, but that is definitely a point that comes up and is a salient something that people feel in my community. So in conclusion, we have on this sort of like entrance funnel, the top two, getting attention and getting interest. I've heard people talk about how to increase Dyalog's awareness and familiarity, but getting to the green desire point to go into putting actual production code, actual APL code in production is this gap that I feel is pretty strong. So yeah, the entrance is strong, the exit is strong, but the mid funnel feels a bit leaky. And yeah, so thank you everyone. And I'd like to talk to you more. It's the last day of this conference, so I look forward to tying everything up with you and a bright future. Thank you very much.